Why is it that black women coddle their sons but go real hard on their daughters? Let's talk about it.
Come on, Blazer.
It's a beef for me.
Wow, 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 wow. For your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we live.
Hey guys, it's your girl Voodoo back with another Jose, but in this one it's gonna be a serious Jose. So I was sitting here wondering, right? I was saying, why do black women coddle their sons but are super hard on their daughters? The reason this thought came into my mind is because my own personal relationship with my mother. I'm going to get personal and I'm going to tell y'all some things that, I feel like maybe somebody out there could relate to. So, just hear me out and let me get it off my chest. So, and this is going to be like, this live isn't really like, well, it's not really a live, but this video isn't really like scripted or nothing. I'm really just going off the top of my head, but it's just some things that I've always wondered about when I look at the relationship dynamics between black women and their boys versus black women and their daughters. So I don't know if you guys follow me and do my reality shows. I always can pick out how some women in these shows deal with their daughters versus how they deal with their sons. Like Martell Holt, for example. Martell Holt is a guy from Love and Marriage Huntsville. It's currently a show on OWN. And whenever I watch the interaction between Martell and his mom, it always gives me like she's the reason that the way he is. And the reason I'm saying that is because I remember even when Martell decided to finally take some accountability for divorcing his wife because he cheated on his wife and had another baby. He told his mother that he wanted to go to therapy. And her immediate reaction was, you don't need therapy. Why you need to go to therapy? Ain't nothing wrong with you, boy. Ain't nothing wrong with you. And amongst other issues and other things that I see when they have their dynamic and their relationship issues or whatever, what I noticed is that she coddles him like insanely. Like, you know what I mean? Like he can do no wrong. He's always right. It's everybody else. It's not him. It's them. You're perfect. These are her words. You're perfect and all these things. And I'm wondering to myself, I said, why is it that same love isn't extended typically to girls? Martell is just one of the people that I can name. I can even give you other people like Ray J and his mother. So we all know, if you've been following any type of social media or any type of reality TV, Ray J has been a horrible man to his girl Princess, right? But no matter what was going on, all the horrible things he did to Princess, Ray J's mom literally like begged him not to marry her. And to be honest, Princess would have really gained a lot from that advice and not married Ray J, and she probably wouldn't be in the situation that she's in. However, that wasn't the place Ray J's mom was coming from. She was coming from a place of, she just was overprotective of him and not wanting him to be with a certain girl. And we find that a lot in our community as well with our black women and our sons. They want to be all in like every intricate detail of their son's life because they're just so overprotective and coddling. Then you have other people like Lil Scrappy and his mama. Now, Lil Scrappy and his mama, Mama D, y'all know them from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. Lil Scrappy is a cheater. Apparently, he's allegedly not paying his bills, not taking care of his family. He's doing shows. He's allegedly got somebody else pregnant. I mean, all the degenerate things you could say about a man doing to his wife. Because remember, these guys are married, right? All the degenerate things that he's done to his wife, his mother still finds a way to stick beside him. Y'all, I guess him and Bambi are still at it and they're not getting back together. I'm not sure, but Mama D decided to stick her nose into this relationship as she does all other relationships. And she got on Instagram to say something, and I want to let y'all hear it, and I'm going to come right back with a little more commentary.
Don't know how to be a mother, because if she did, she wouldn't be on Instagram showing her butt nakedness and trying to pull in men. You ain't getting paid for it, so why is you showing your body? When ain't a man ain't lied to us. Come on. But one thing about it, if that's all he did, but you doing 10, 50 things behind the world back that you ain't telling on TV, girl, to this boy. And he got a mama, baby. And I'm not going to let you do it. And since your mama ain't going to step in and tell you to take your naked behind off Instagram, then let me tell her. Get your naked behind. Be a lady, honey. Have something that in the man, what she don't get is other men gonna watch this show this season and see how she trying to drag Scrappy. And they gonna be careful with that. They gonna her and throw her out like they been doing before Scrappy met her. Sent on. She always down in him. Always. They ain't gonna call my son last week. Why you can't go on social media and say I'm a good person? Cause you ain't, bitch. Why you want him to lie like you lying?
Now, this is why I used Mama D and Lil Scrappy as an example. The reason I use them as an example, and I use that video in particular as an example, is because listen to what Mama D is saying. It's not that she's saying anything wrong by telling Bambi not to wear, get on Instagram naked. I'm all for that message. But look in the way in which she's delivering it and how she's talking to her. Like, she's just so much venom and so much mean and somewhat hatefulness that she's spreading to this girl because she just doesn't like her. She just don't like her. It's the same kind of dynamic that I kind of grew up in. When my mother would discipline my brothers, it was from a loving place, right? When she had to discipline them, it was from a loving place. If my daddy jumped on my brothers a little bit too hard, she all jumping in the middle like, don't do that. He didn't do this or he didn't do that. I had a brother who sold drugs. I have a brother currently now on drugs. I have a brother who has emotional issues, but she's so overprotective of them. However, when it came to me in my life, it was almost a complete opposite, right? It was a 180 degree change because she was always so much harder on me. I will say this. What I do love and appreciate about my mother is she taught me something that I never knew I would need as a child, but I'm grateful to have it now, and that is independence. My mother is a stay-at-home mom, has always been for the last 40 years. My dad is 100% the provider in her household, and I never understood why she always would tell me, y'all, you grow up, me and my sister, you grow up and you be independent. Don't never depend on a man. Always be independent. And at the time, I'm looking like, why would you tell me to be independent when you're not independent, right? It just didn't click. But now that I'm an adult, I understand that even though that dynamic worked for her, and they may have had issues that I don't know about that I'm unaware of, but even though it worked for her, she realized and recognized that it won't probably work for her girls. And I take that and I appreciate her for that, because without that, I probably would be stuck somewhere, in a horrible relationship with a man, not able to, take care of myself, but I have to stay because he's the sole provider. So I love and respect my mother for that. However, the other ways in which she disciplined me or my sisters versus my brothers was completely different. When she was upset with me, it was like venom, it was anger, even to this day. So for instance, when I was a young girl, and this is a picture of me being a young girl. When I was a young girl, I had weight issues, right? My weight fluctuated. I don't know how to help it. I just like to eat, you know what I mean? But I can recall I had to be about 9 or 10 years old, and I was going into the refrigerator to get something to eat. And her first response sitting at the table was just like, look at you, you fat. You're going to be fat, nasty, and trifling, just like your nana. Now, if y'all not from New Orleans, nana is your godmother. That's what we call your nana. And your godfather is your parent, right? So she was like, you're going to be just like nasty and fat, just like her. You know what I mean? And that hurt me so bad to where I literally went into my room and cried. Not only did I cry, I went on a hunger strike. Not really a hunger strike, but I literally stopped eating 2/3 as much as I was because I didn't want to be fat anymore. Long story short, I ended up losing weight. And when I lost weight, I'm thinking, okay, cool. Now I'm going to get the attention from my mama. You know what I'm saying? My mama going to be okay with me. But it was always something else. Fast forward to adulthood, right? Even as an adult, let me give you a little premise before this. My sister was unalived during a robbery while she was 8 months pregnant in 2013. My brother was unalived due to a motorcycle accident, in 2015. So that's 2 years. So that's losing 2 kids back to back, right? Within a 2-year span. And I, for one, was devastated. Obviously, my mom has 4 kids. 4 of us, the first 4 of us are only a year apart. So I, for one, was devastated, right? I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe, I'm losing both of my siblings. We were thick as thieves because we're only a year apart, right? So coming into adulthood, I knew that my mom had gone through a lot, losing 2 kids. Honestly, my sister was her favorite child. You know, every mother has their favorite child. So my sister, when my sister passed, my mama took it real hard. Like, y'all don't understand. It was really, really bad for years, right? But nevertheless, when having interactions with my mother as an adult, I take that into consideration because I'm saying, like, you know, she is a grieving woman. You know, she's buried 2 kids. Like, this isn't something that people just get over, you know what I mean? And I have to take that into effect. The problem with this is when feeling attacked by my mother, in the recent past, I'm going to be honest, I have been disrespectful. And the reason I've been disrespectful, and I'm not making excuses for it, but the reason I've become disrespectful is because I have been the little girl the entire time, my entire life, who literally just, you know, take it. I just took it from my mama. I didn't have a voice. I couldn't say anything. It was to the point where I would get into multiple fights at school because I would be so upset at the things that my mom has said or done to me at home, to where I would just, you know, if somebody says something out of pocket or out of the way at school, we fighting. That's just what it was. And for the longest of my life, I never understood why I have abandonment issues, because I do. I have abandonment issues because I've always longed for a relationship with my mother that I never had, right? And I can recall even at the age of, I want to say about 14 or 15, I could recall asking her, because her friend and her daughter came over, and they were just so tight, so close, right? And I remember looking at my mom and I was like, Mom, why we can't be close like that? Why we can't, you know, be close like these people? And she told me, she was like, I ain't your fucking friend. I'm not about to be close to you like that. We ain't fucking friends. And mommy me understands that you shouldn't be friends with your child. I get that. But it was just the way in which she spoke the things that she said to me, right? And that hurted me. And I believe that was the start of my abandonment issues, because I've always longed for a relationship with my mother. And it's sad because I watched my brothers literally like abuse her emotionally, spiritually, financially, like everything. And they can do no wrong in her eyes. But when it comes to me, who's the only support system that she has, she's easy to disown me, throw me away. You know what I mean? I've had my mother, and I'm getting real candid right now, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all just gonna have to hear the truth. I've had my mother tell me that she wished it was me who died instead of my sister. Now, this was kind of like the first time she said it, I cried. I'm telling you, like, you don't understand the way that I cried, like the way that I just like let out this huge like roar of like sorrow and pain. I couldn't like grasp the idea of her saying something like that. And it was in the midst of an argument, right? So I struggled with that, and I doubled back, I want to say a couple years later, and I asked her about that comment, and I said, Mama, you remember what you said to me? Do you understand how that made me feel? Like, it made me feel like horrible. I cried behind that. Like, I'm just so messed up. And she looked me in my face and said, well, I meant it. I said it because I meant it, right? So I'm just like, oh my God, like, why is this woman doing this? And I was very humble. And I didn't respond back in a disrespectful manner. The very last time, which is the third time I asked her about it in the midst of crying and us having an argument, because me and my mother has never really gotten along. We've always been cordial, but never really gotten along. So in the midst of an argument where I'm crying bloody tears, and I'm like, you double down on saying that you hate me and you wish that I had died instead of my sister and blah, 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 blah. And she tripled down on it. And it was in that moment I felt like I had to defend myself, if that makes sense. Again, I don't promote being disrespectful to your mother. I respect all my elders. I do. I'm the most respectful person. But I've developed this sense of, if you disrespect me, I have to disrespect you. And this is something that I'm working on, right? So when it comes to my mother saying that the third time, my response was, in quote, I remember it like it was yesterday, and she reminds me of it every time we talk, but my response was, in quote, I know you really feel this way because you've tripled down on this, right? But God knows this as well. And that's why she took my sister and left you right here with me. And when I tell you my mother broke down and cried, and I was very perplexed. I didn't really know how to take that. I didn't really know how to deal with that. I felt so bad that I would say something to make my mother cry because again, this is my mama. Like, what are we doing, you know? And it even made me cry to know that I would make my mama cry, you know? And I went home. I left her house. I went home. I cried. I asked God to forgive me because that was the very first time I could even, utter a word back to my mother. I was used to her being the person who can say whatever she wants to me, no matter how evil, no matter how disrespectful, no matter what it was. I couldn't say anything back to her, especially, anything disrespectful, right? And, we're all raised in that Black household where any talk back, no matter what it is, disrespectful or not, is just garnered as disrespect. And then now you're in trouble. And, so I was conditioned that way. And I believe that really stuck a nail in my back when it came to my mother and how I know how she feels about me. I was kind of on the fence. Maybe she doesn't really feel that way. Maybe this, maybe that, blah, 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 blah. But I knew in that moment that that's the way my mother really and truly feels about me. And that stuck with me. And it also added to my abandonment issues because, again, I'm this little girl longing for a relationship with her mother, and her mother continues to just say, you know what, screw you, you ain't getting no relationship. It's a tough pill to swallow when you realize your mother just doesn't like you. And for the longest, I've never understood why she doesn't like me. But I'm going into my life right now, you guys, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling and I'm babbling, but I'm doing this because I just got to get this out here. I feel like this social media thing is an outlet. I'm not disrespecting my mother. I would never disrespect my mother. It's just an issue that I wanted to get out here and see if anybody could relate. So I'm so sorry if I'm rambling and babbling, but nevertheless, that last interaction with my mother has created an environment to where my mother can say really nasty and vile things to me, and I retaliate with just as much nasty and vile things in return. And I'm starting to find the more that I speak to other Black women about their relationships with their mothers in comparison to their mother's relationship with their sons, a lot of people are experiencing the same things, right? And it may not be to the degree of mine, but you know what I mean? A lot of Black women, especially in this generation, which would be between, I would say, 30s and 40s, maybe even the 20s, I'm not sure, but this generation of women, Black women, are very independent, and the men are very coddled, and we can see that on these dating platforms when they're talking about what women bring to the table. When you see how emotional men get, how they're unaliving Black women like 90 going west, and it's just indicative of the process in which Black women back in those days raised their sons versus how they raised their daughters. So now women, or Black women in particular, are seen to be masculine. We're seen to be uncooperative and all these things because we have advanced in a way that others haven't, right? Other Black men for that matter. And I'm speaking on a collective, not individual, but on a collective. So what is the problem and how do we fix it, right? Because when I'm looking at other things going on in the society and I'm looking at my relationship with my mother, I tend to just scratch my head a little bit because I'm like, how do we fix this and how did we get here? So I looked up this article, right? Because I wanted to get others' perspective on what was been going on and, try to figure out the dynamic of the relationship between Black women and their daughters versus Black women and their sons. And so I found this little piece in this Essence article when it pertains to Black women and Black sons. And this little paragraph in the middle kind of stuck out to me a lot. It says, as Black mothers, the majority of us raise our sons with a heart full of fear. We are conscious of the fact that there are both blatant and subtle conspiracies at play that are meant to annihilate the Black man. Whether overt or subtle, white supremacy will murder the Black man's spirit and mind if he is not protected. That creates an intense level of anxiety for the Black mother, and in response, she has learned to act as the first line of defense for their sons. Now, this was very, very interesting to me because when you think about what's going on in the world today and what's been going on in the past, the white supremacy has been an issue to Black people in general, not just Black men, Black people, Black men and women. However, Black mothers rationalize and socialize this as saying, hey, I have to coddle my son and be there in his first line of defense because nobody else is going to be there for him, so I have to be that. And that creates an environment that we see like the Mama D's and, Martell Holt's mom. But that very last sentence says, that creates an intense level of anxiety for Black mothers, and in response, she has to learn to act as the first line of defense for her son. That was very profound to me because I feel like the baby boomer era, I really feel like that's when it kind of like really got out of hand with the Black women and their sons. But I feel like that era had that kind of notion like, hey, white supremacy is gonna do something bad to my son, so let me hold him close and coddle him and he does no wrong and all this. I believe that's when it started, but I believe it got out of hand for the mothers that were mothering in the 80s. I believe that is when it got out of hand, because I can look back to my childhood, again circling it back around me, and I can see that not only materializing in my own home, but in my grandmother's home, in all my cousins, all our friends. Everybody's brother had an easier way to go than typically the daughters did. And what's worse about that is, if you look at the boys who were raised in the 80s, those are your parents today, right? Those are the people in the 30s and 40s, right? In 2023. When you look at the younger generation today, and you look at the boys who are in their 30s and 40s era right now, those were the ones that were coddled the most. They were coddled so much so to where they're now on your podcast making horrible videos talking about how women suck and they hate women. They are your incels. They are your all these guys who are just hate women. It kind of like backfired on them, right? So these are the fathers of the young boys who we see today in 2023 who are just completely out of control and uncheckable, to be completely honest. Because when you really look at it, Black men can't tell young boys nothing today. Black men will not check a young Black boy in 2023, because he knows that if he does, that young Black boy in 2023 may end his life. He knows that. And that's the issue that Black men or Black boys are facing now. And this is not to make it about Black boys, but it's just to kind of show you how everything is materializing to today, right? That's the issue that we're facing now, where the children are uncontrollable. Our Black mothers today, even in 2023, completely neglect our daughters. We may not be as hard on them, but we completely neglect them. That's why they're having high pregnancy rates. They're having high rates of being in gangs and being even involved in the street activity that's going on today that's getting young Black girls unalive. And not only can we see this in the streets and on the news and on Twitter and Instagram and all this stuff, you can actually see this in your own homes and in your own families and in your own neighborhoods. I see it in mine because I have two degenerate brothers, and I'm just going to be real. They are degenerates, but my mother basically told me that they were making it to heaven before me. So it's just the constant coddling. No matter what they do to her, even though they've done some horrible things to her, she would never denounce them the way she denounced me. And we're seeing it materialize when we look at social media and even in our neighborhoods, like I was saying, because these Black women of today's society, the parents of today's society, have completely failed our younger generation. And again, this is not a hit piece on anybody personally. I don't mean individually. I just mean collectively. Look at the Carlisha Hood situation. We watched a young man literally assault this woman, cock back as far as he can go and assault this woman, cold clocking her in her face, and her son retaliating by powing him, and now he's unalive. And I find it interesting that we watched him do this, but the majority of the comments initially was against this woman because basically they felt like it was her fault, or that her son didn't have to do the pow. He didn't have to do that. They basically unintentionally like rallied around this thug, this Black man who's literally a thug, who was assaulting this woman in a store. And if he's doing that in a store, he's more than likely assaulting women in his life and around his neighborhood. And he's just this horrible person that they try to create and make a martyr, when the fact of the matter is he isn't any of that. But I don't think we realized it. I pick up on it because I pick up on it all the time because I experience it, right? I picked up on the way that black women, in particular, rallied around the thug instead of rallying around the woman. And I'm not saying that all black women, but there was a large collective of black women when all of this stuff happened that were trying to rally around the thug instead of this woman. And I don't think we know how intentional we are when we do those type of things. But and I believe a lot of it is unintentional. I believe we're indoctrinated as black women to coddle our boys and have more feeling and more love for our sons and for other black men because we see our sons within them. I think we've been conditioned to basically do that, to fear for our sons and love our sons. And it's creating a culture right now that is just extremely toxic and it's nasty and it's vile. And it's gotten us to a point to where we can identify degenerate behavior and find a way to still blame black women and black girls. Now, it's to the point even with this situation where they had the funeral for this bum, for this thug, for this horrible person who got exactly what he deserved. And look at the way things turned out and the things his family, the women in his family, were supportive of his degenerate behavior. Look at this lady's shirt. I don't know if the girl in the middle is his daughter. I don't know who the women on each side of this girl is, but they are in that generation, those 80s babies, maybe some early 90s, but I want to say about the 80s babies. That's that generation of girls who were basically forced to get it on their own and figure it out and neglected by their moms. These women are now coddling their sons to the point where they even entertains his degenerate behavior in cold clocking a woman in the store. Her shirt says Knockout King or something like that. But he's not here anymore. He's gone. And this is the mindset of black women today when it comes to our boys. And it's just insane the level and the amount of degenerate behavior we will accept, the amount of things we will take just in all the protection of our sons. And it's disgusting. And I don't like that I'm associated with those types of black women, right? This is disgusting. This is insane. I get it. That's your son or whoever he is to you. I understand you grieving, but it kind of talks about and it kind of basically explains why he had the behavior that he had because of the women around him. And this picture is very indicative of his behavior. They supported it. They didn't correct him. Nobody held him accountable. And that's what we're seeing in Black America today, in multiple households, not everybody, but in multiple households. And it's just like, I am just floored and like, I can't believe that this is where we've gotten to, right? But unfortunately, this is our reality. The coddling of black boys is just unrealistic. And if I had to go back to my story, I would say that one thing I did decide to do, since I feel like the relationship between my mother and myself isn't good, and to be completely honest, the relationship between her mother and her mother isn't good. However, they coddle their sons. They love their sons unconditionally. And that's very common in the black community. Black women love their boys and love men unconditionally to the point where logic and reason goes out the window when it comes to holding black men accountable for certain things. And a lot of times black women also participate in the BS that black men do. But in my situation, I did make the conscious effort to break that generational cycle, whereas having bad relationships with your daughters. I have one daughter. She's in college right now, and we have the best relationship ever. And I chose to break that generational cycle that we see because I'm looking at society today and what's going on with our youth today. And I'm looking at how it's actualized the relationship inside of the black home and how it affects us now and where we are today. I hate that black girls are neglected. I hate that black girls are forgotten about. I hate that black girls aren't believed when they're told or when they're said to have been harmed. I hate that black girls have to not only deal with battling black men, but also black women because they're so black male identified. So this was my story, guys. Y'all jump in the comments section and let me know if you can identify with anything that I'm saying as far as my relationship with my mother. And also let me know in the comments if you can see what I'm saying that's happening in the world when it comes to the Carlisha Hood situation as an example, or even the other examples that I use showing that black women will help and aid black men before themselves. Y'all leave it in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this situation. I would love to hear your input. I would love to hear everything, your thoughts and comments. Please be respectful to my mother. This was not a bash session for her. I love her, and I will see you hoes later. Bye.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.